So how are y'all doing tonight? Thank you for having me back. I had a ton of fun hanging with y'all in the springtime and got to know a lot of you through that. And so if I've never met you, my name is Brandon Minnett. I'm the 7th and 8th grade minister. So I hang out with middle schoolers, and I love it, and I choose to, and I love working with middle schoolers. So first of all, let's talk passion for a second, okay? Not like passion, not like that kind of passion, like your trip coming up, okay? I'm an unmarried dude. I ain't talking passion on this stage. So if you are not going to passion, here's the deal. Passion is, well, let me start here. You guys have so much noise. I have so much noise. There's just noise and stuff fighting for our attention, and there's so much social media, there's all this stuff that's just fighting for our attention. To take away a few days and get away from all that stuff and the garbage and get away for that for a few days and worship and grow close together is one of the absolute best things on earth you can do for your faith. And so I just encourage you to go to Passion. And if you're already going to Passion, I hope you're paying for a friend to go to Passion with you, because it will change their life. And if you do not have any way to do that, I will pay for your Passion, or I'll figure out a way we can pay for your Passion, okay? These trips are so unbelievable, and you guys have got to go. All right? Sound good? Has nothing to do with my message. So, confession time, okay? When I was in high school, I was absolutely obsessed. I say obsessed, and yeah, that's maybe underplayed a little bit, with Britney Spears, okay? I had, and this is embarrassing, but I had a poster of Britney Spears on my closet door, okay? I had this big, I was an only child, so I had this big room, and I had tons of wall space. I had tons of posters of stuff. Well, I decided to take this one corner of my room. So if you walked into my room, the door was over here, and there was a wall here, and then around, and you don't care. But over here, I decided to make, and I didn't call it this is me looking back, and I've been preaching for a long time, and I'm still embarrassed about this, but I made what I didn't call it then. I thought it was cool. I made a wall for Britney Spears in my room. All right, not joking, not kidding at all. A whole wall, and I had Britney Spears posters. This is embarrassing. I would go and buy magazines, and I would cut out the pictures of Britney Spears and sticky tack up on the wall. If there's a new Britney Spears poster, I just move the other one over and add another one. The one I really remember, and I should forget it because it's not good for a dude to have this in his mind. But if you guys saw it as kids, because I'm an old dude now, the one where Britney had really short jean shorts on and the pink crop top, okay? I remember, I don't know why, here's the deal. My parents wouldn't let me have video games growing up. So I don't know why. My mom, my dad came in my room sometimes. I don't know why Britney Spears shrine, creepy, stalker, whatever. I don't know why that was okay, but he's not getting video games. But yeah, go ahead, pink crop top, mini shorts, yeah, whatever, do that kind of thing. So it doesn't stop there. So we got a computer. My first computer that our family got was when I was 16. And I'm sure at some point I have my desktop picture as Britney Spears. But when, your cursor, the little arrow that points at stuff and, tells you what to do, you can turn that into whatever you want it. And I turned it into Britney Spears' face. Yeah, I'm embarrassed by that. That is wholeheartedly, bottom of my heart, that embarrasses me to say that. And so my short story here, my sister moved to Canada years ago, moved up into Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, to plant a church, and I went and did an internship there. And this is probably 6 years after the whole Britney Spears as my cursor fiasco and my Britney Spears shrine, and I'm Bible college to go be a minister. Well, I remember around that time, the staff from her church came to visit our house, and they stayed there, and they saw the Britney Spears shrine, and they saw the cursor. So when I walked into my intern office, it was Britney Spearsified for me to give me a hard time, okay? So they had a Britney Spears, a big cup they found. I don't know where they got it, but I don't know if it said "I'm a slave for you" on the side of the cup or whatever, and they printed out pictures and put them on the wall. So needless to say, I knew a ton about Britney Spears, okay? Now let's get the embarrassing one. The embarrassing one's gone. Let's redeem myself for a minute, okay? So the other thing that I absolutely love since I was 14 years old, Peyton Manning was a player for the Indianapolis Colts, okay? Colts fans in the house? Don't give up on them. Don't give up on them. They're rebuilding. We need to fire some people. We won't get into that. But huge Colts fan, and Peyton Manning is like the number one player of all sports that I've rooted for my whole life. I mean, he was a Colt for more than half of my life. I knew tons of stats. I still know tons of stats about Peyton Manning. I know he's from Louisiana. I know that he played at University of Tennessee. I know he has a brother named Eli. I know his dad's this famous quarterback. Know tons of stuff about Peyton Manning. I was able to go in 2004 to the Colts game where he broke the touchdown record the first time, and it was there, and it was awesome, and the lights, and everyone's taking pictures, and I have that ticket still because I love Peyton Manning. If you go over to my office over in the Foundry next door, I've got a Peyton Manning jersey that someone gave me. Love, love, love. Had to be a Broncos fan, and they had to play the Colts. So I had to root for the Colts, but I hated it, and I wanted Robert Mathis not to hit Peyton Manning. But anyways, went on, ended with Super Bowl. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Huge Peyton Manning fan. So my point in telling you about Britney Spears, my point in telling you about Peyton Manning is I've learned tons of stuff about them. Either through the magazine, I didn't tell you that part. I don't know, I was past that, but I feel like I should share. I would go through like the magazine aisle, not that magazine aisle, but like the normal grocery store. I just want to clear, it's like, Brandon. So, grocery store, magazine aisle, and I would like, then like pick up one of like the girl magazines and see if there's Britney Spears pictures, and like if anybody's looking around, I'd grab the Bibles that are for sale. I don't know what I did, but did that too. I don't know why I had to share that with you, but I did. But we tend to learn about stuff that we like, and I learned so much about Britney Spears. I learned so much about Peyton Manning, and whether we like to admit it, like some of you are probably like, well, I'm not like the learner type. Like I don't like to read, or I don't like to study. You're learning about stuff all the time. Whether you want to be learning or not learning, you learn stuff all the time. You take in stuff all the time. You see words all the time. You see pictures all the time. You see stats all the time. And so all of us, whether we want to admit it or not, we are all learners. And here's the deal. When you become a learner in Jesus, it completely changes from any other thing that you've ever learned in your life. The stuff that you learn becomes different because here's why. Nowhere in my life have I ever ran into Britney Spears, and probably that's good because there's no pepper spray in my eyes probably, but nowhere in my life have I ever ran into Britney Spears or Peyton Manning, and they've said to me, Brandon, man, thanks for being my best friend. Thanks for being at the touchdown game. Britney's not like, hey, thanks, Brandon, for making the creepy shrine to me in your room when you were a teenager. Like they've never done that because, yeah, I knew all this stuff about them, and I knew the stats, and I knew this, and I knew all the songs, and I had the albums, and I had the jersey, but I didn't have a relationship. See, when you learn about Jesus, it's got to start with a relationship. You can't just learn things about Jesus. You can't just know stuff about Jesus. You can't even just open your Bible and memorize where he was born and what he does and who his parents were and do all this stuff. Here's the deal with Jesus. When you start to learn about him and that area of your life is made new and you realize that you're supposed to now learn about Jesus, that learning is not just stats and trivia. That learning is having the best thing in the world. Now your focus, now your sense of worship, now the thing that you put above everything else is Jesus. That thing that you know all that stuff about, he desperately wants to have a relationship with you. He's not this untouchable celebrity that we can't get close to. He's not this untouchable God that doesn't want to be a part of your everyday life. Jesus wants to be a part of your everyday life. Now we're going to read about some dudes in the Bible who screwed this up, who could have had this huge opportunity, who could have had this awesome experience when Jesus came down to earth, but instead, they didn't have a relationship with God. They knew tons about God. They might have known more about God than anybody in the world at that time, but they missed this opportunity to have a relationship. And these guys are called the Pharisees. Now, it's like a big churchy word. If you've been around church or you haven't, Pharisee is like a churchy word. If you go back before Jesus came down to earth and you see the word Pharisee, it would have been a really good thing. Like if you said, hey, man, you're like a Pharisee. You've been like, oh, thanks. That would mean you are a religious smart guy. Not only are you religious, you are probably in charge of ministry programs for God. Not only that, you were considered to be some of the smartest people around. You were the one teaching about God. You were the one experiencing God. You're the one loving people. You're the one who's giving. Your life was a representation of God. But here's what happened over time. It started being about themselves and their knowledge and their popularity and for them and what they could do and how much money they had and how much attention they could get. I'm an attention person. Yeah, I love preaching and I want to point to Jesus, but one of my issues is sometimes I just want to be the center of attention, youngest child. And the Pharisees were just like that. They wanted constant attention. They wanted people to know they were the religious ones. And before too long, all they knew were stats. They knew trivia. They knew everything probably there was to know about the Bible in that time, but they missed one key component that I do not want anyone in this room to miss tonight. They did not have a relationship with Jesus Christ. If they had known and they had a relationship with God, they would have seen that the whole Bible points to Jesus. They would have seen the Old Testament prophecy. Old Testament, before Jesus came, started with all these verses and all these stories, and everything is pointing towards a Christ. But they missed that because they were missing out on their relationship with God because they were too concerned about stats and how good they were. In fact, Jesus comes down to this earth, and you would think that now they see him. They see this guy who's fulfilling all this prophecy. They see this guy who's healing people. They see this guy who's serving people. They see this guy who's loving people. They see this guy who's everything the Old Testament said he would be, but they refused to have any part of it because he didn't benefit them. And instead of hanging out with them, instead of gracing his presence to these almighty Pharisees, he was with the poor and loving the people who are weak, and he was going to people who are sick and making sure people had a future, and he wasn't spending time with them. So they get jealous and they start churning the crowd against him. In fact, if you fast forward to the end of Jesus' life, those are the people that turned the Roman government. Those are the people that were in the crowd saying, "Crucify him, let's go, let's kill this guy." Those were the Pharisees. All this knowledge, all these things about God, all this stuff, but no relationship. Here's how Jesus felt about the Pharisees. And this is like, whoa, Jesus throws it down on them in this verse. Matthew 23, if you guys want to look with me in your Bibles or look up on the screen, Jesus hits it home here. He says this: "What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are careful to tithe even the tiniest income from your herb gardens, but you ignore the more important aspects of the law: justice, mercy, and faith." Things about justice, mercy, and faith, those require a relationship. It's easy to say, oh, I can show justice, but you got to have a relationship. You got to get nitty-gritty with people to do that kind of stuff. You should tithe, yes, but do not neglect the more important things. Blind guides. You strain your water so you won't accidentally swallow a gnat, but you swallow a camel. Whoa, that's awesome. Look that up later. "What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are so careful to clean the outside of the cup, the dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee, first wash the inside of the cup and the dish, then the outside will become clean too." Let's talk about that for a second. He's talking directly about on the outside, they know it all. On the outside, they're looking good. On the outside, they're serving people. On the outside, they're tithing. On the outside, they're probably doing some stuff that is awesome, and people look to them as religious leaders. But he's saying on the inside of them, there's no relationship. And if we don't have a relationship with Jesus, on the inside of us is messed up. "What sorrow awaits you, you teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees." He says it again. "Hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but filled on the inside with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. Outwardly you look like righteous people, but inwardly your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness." These are some strong words from Jesus. And I don't say this because I'm like, oh, I'm going to go and I'm speaking at their church and I want to scare them. I want to tell them this. He's saying that he's the answer to filling you up from the inside. He's saying you're this way, you know all this stuff, but you're really evil on the inside. Your life's all about you. Jesus will heal you of that. So don't walk away thinking, oh, that's totally me, because that's me a lot of the times. But know that Jesus wants to come in and he wants to dwell inside of you and he wants to lead your life and he wants to have a relationship with you so that you can have a future and relationship with Jesus. The next story is an actual story, or probably an actual story that Jesus saw, is in Luke. Skip a couple of books over. And it starts chapter 18, verse 9. It says this, "And Jesus told this story to some who had great confidence in their own righteousness and scorned everyone else. 2 men went to the temple to pray. One was a Pharisee, the other was a despised tax collector." Here's tax collectors were like the worst dudes in the Bible. Think of like the worst kind of people on this earth. And I'm not talking to people who answer their phone in the movie theater, okay? Those would be second and the worst people on this earth. But I'm talking about people who like are the worst people you can possibly imagine on this earth. That's how tax collectors were viewed. Because they would cheat you, they'd take your money, they'd say you own thousands more dollars than you deserve, or that you actually owe in taxes. They would make themselves rich. Probably tax collectors, Pharisees I think were hated by some people. Tax collectors were hated by everybody. So this story that Jesus tells really paints a picture here. It says this, 2 men went to the temple to pray. One was a Pharisee, the other was a despised tax collector. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed this prayer. "I thank you, God, that I am not a sinner like everyone else. For I don't cheat." He's standing in public. "For I don't cheat, I don't sin, I don't commit adultery, and I'm certainly not like the tax collector. I fast twice a week, and I give you 1/10 of my income." But the tax collector stood at a distance, and he dared not even lift his eyes to heaven as he prayed. Instead, he beat his chest in sorrow, saying, "O God, be merciful to me, for I am a sinner." Jesus says this, "I tell you, this sinner, not the Pharisee, return home justified before God. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exhausted." My question for you guys, are you going to be a tax collector or a Pharisee? See, a tax collector didn't have it all together. If you look at a tax collector, you completely judge him, and you say, that guy doesn't have his life together. That guy's evil. He's doing all that stuff. But inside, even though he was wrestling with stuff in his life, inside he understood what it was to have a relationship with God. He understood that when he came to the temple to worship and when he came to the temple to give what he had, that was his worship to God and for him to have a relationship with God. But the Pharisee, it was just to get popularity. It was just for the show. And he would stand up and he had lots of resources and he had this stuff and he would stand above the people and exalt himself, where this tax collector stood at a distance, but he exalted God. So my question for you, are you a tax collector or are you a Pharisee? Because in this story, Jesus says the tax collector was justified and the tax collector understood what it was to have a relationship with God. Let me tell you about my grandma. My grandma was an amazing, amazing woman, like a lot of grandmas are. She did the baking of the good, yummy, yummy stuff, way too much of it in my life. She was super sweet. She was super smile. She was super proud of her grandkids. But you take out all aside, my grandma loved Jesus. See, my grandpa and my grandma, and they never say because they didn't believe in boasting. Because their outside didn't look a whole lot. They had a really small house. They didn't have a lot of money. My grandpa worked a lot of part-time jobs, being a janitor or waiting tables or being a custodian or doing stuff that you don't look at and think, man, it's glamorous. But here's what my grandma and my grandpa did. They loved Jesus and had a relationship with him. And if you met my grandpa and grandma, the love of Jesus would pour out of them. The outside experience wouldn't be much, or according to our world standards, they didn't have money, they didn't have a big house, they didn't have the cars, they didn't have the careers. My grandma, you're not going to find her name on a plaque somewhere because she did something famous. My grandma, you're not going to see a huge tombstone in her graveyard because she was somebody everybody talked about. She wasn't the prom queen. She wasn't good at her sports in high school. Her family was poor. If you look, there's nothing glamorous about their family except on the inside, they had a huge relationship with Jesus Christ. And because of that, the love that she showed to her kids and her grandkids, man, you want to talk about someone who understood what it was to have a relationship with Jesus. So my question is, what are you learning? Are you learning stuff to glorify yourself? Are you only learning things so that you can have an awesome career? Are you only learning stuff so you can get her number or his number or to become popular? Or are you doing stuff to have a relationship with Jesus Christ? Do you want to be a tax collector? Or do you want to keep on being a Pharisee? Let me pray for y'all.